When a man sells a couple's estate, the FBI calls him. His world fell apart when the call came. The FBI had described to him in detail what his favorite aunt and uncle had done, but he still didn't trust them, feeling like a deer in headlights. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. It seemed impossible for the family members he knew and loved to have been involved in one of the most significant crimes of the 1980s. However, a doubt began to seep into his thoughts. Are the people around us truly people we know? How well known are our neighbors, friends, and family members? Rita and Jerome Alter were excellent people in Ron Roseman's eyes, a resident of Houston. In their neighborhood, both friends and neighbors regarded them with great affection and education. Both of them were educators who had amassed sufficient funds to visit every continent. Ron was especially enthralled with his uncle's tales, but he would not discover another tale about Jerome and Rita's covert existence until much, much later. The Alters appeared to be typical middle-class residents who moved to Cliff, New Mexico in the 1970s. Jerry had a passion for adventure, art, and travel, and Rita was a beacon of compassion to everyone she came into contact with. As a speech pathologist, she was fully supportive of Jerry's decision to leave his career as a music teacher in order to pursue more upscale endeavors. Even though the Alters were well known to their neighbors, they subsequently claimed that the couple preferred to live alone. The couple was keeping a huge secret, which no one ever guessed. Rita was just 5 years old when Jerry died in 2011 from natural causes. The two children they left behind, Joseph and Barbara, are now adults. The Alters' crime would never have been prosecuted if Ron Roseman hadn't been named executor of their estate, since he was the one who resided closest to Cliff, New Mexico. Ron made the decision to list the Alters' Cliff house for sale and invited a bevy of vendors to see their belongings. In a few days, the majority of the things were carried off after being quickly scooped up. The highest bidder won paintings, furniture, and African antiques, and David Van Acker of Silver City took home the entire haul for just $2,000. Ron was happy to finalize his late aunt and uncle's inheritance, even if the $2,000 wasn't quite as much as he had hoped for. He had no idea that among the things the antique merchant had loaded into his car that day was something quite valuable. Ron had no idea that this specific object had been the subject of a 33-year investigation, and that the case was about to come to a dramatic conclusion. When David Van Acker started to sift and price the assets he had just bought for a pittance, he was giddy with delight at the deal he had just found. However, as he examined each object in turn, his gaze kept returning to the same one. When he looked at it, he had a sense that he just couldn't describe, but he wouldn't find out what it was until he started to delve more into the mystery. When David got back to his house in Pinos Altos that evening, he placed the labor of the day in the back of his mind. But the next day, one of his recently bought items was turning heads in the community. One day, a perceptive artist entered Manzanita Ridge Antiques, David's antique business, and said the 5 words that caused the FBI to call Ron Roseman. Ron remarked, "It's my favorite aunt and uncle." You know, I was having trouble picturing situations in my mind. Like a deer caught in headlights, I felt. Ron initially refused to accept Jerry and Rita's FBI accusations. Then, slowly, the truth of everything set in. Could one of the most heinous heists in American history have been done off by his cherished aunt and uncle? It's November 29, 1985, early in the morning. Opening the doors of Tucson, Arizona's biggest and busiest museum is a lone security guard. A staff person walks by. The museum isn't quite open for the day yet, and it's early in the morning. That doesn't stop the event, though. An unidentified pair walks up and strikes up a discussion. Looking to be in her 60s, the woman talks aimlessly to the security guy about everything that comes to mind. As they converse about the weather and art, a guy sneaks into the building and makes his way directly to the 3rd level. After a little while, the male abruptly returns by the woman's side and they quickly get into a 2-door rust-red sports vehicle. Feeling concerned that the pair left without entering the museum, the security guard proceeds to look into it, his stomach churning. Since the museum lacked security cameras in 1985, it was impossible to capture the individual in the act. The security guard looks at the empty frame on the third level and soon recognizes what has happened. Missing is the valuable artwork Woman Ochre by well-known Dutch artist Willem de Kooning. All that's left is a rectangular section of canvas where a blade was used to cut the artwork out of its frame. The guard's description of the enigmatic pair and their getaway vehicle was the only lead the police had, as they were unable to locate any fingerprints. During the mid-century Expressionist movement, Willem de Kooning was a well-known abstract painter whose works are extremely significant. A remarkable $137.5 million was paid for one picture when it was auctioned. Before an unassuming trader in Silver City understood what he had sitting in his antique store, the renowned art robbery of Woman Ochre had been unsolved for 30 years. Before an artist recognized the abstract picture he had purchased from the Alter's estate and exclaimed, "That's a Willem de Kooning." At David Van Acker's store, he had given it little thought. He didn't realize how likely it was that he would come onto such an important historical document until he had done some investigation. His eyes widened in their sockets as he read the report about the stolen artwork from the Arizona Museum of Art. As soon as David recognized exactly what he had, his amazement turned to terror. He had to keep it hidden from curious onlookers. He transferred the 40 by 30-inch picture to the toilet, which was, ironically, the only door in his business that latched, and secured it there. Van Acker subsequently said, "We decided to pick it up and put it somewhere safe because we were afraid someone would smash it or flick paint off of it." He then gave the Tucson Museum a call. Olivia Miller, the UAMA curator, stated, "I had daydreams of getting that phone call, of someone calling up or someone mysteriously sending a package and the painting being inside. I honestly didn't think it would happen," the speaker said. Naturally, Olivia was first dubious of David's discovery. Then David revealed an important information that altered the course of events. What he said that truly stuck out and impressed me was, Olivia Miller recalled, "I was thinking it seriously, but he said that there are lines across it as if it's cracked, like it's been rolled up, and that really made me stop. All right, that's just a detail that anyone could mention." That's when a call was placed to Chief Brian C. Stone. After more than 30 years of investigating the theft of the de Kooning artwork, Chief Brian C. Stone never lost hope that one day he would solve the case. "It was just a feeling," he stated. Therefore, 32 years later, I witnessed the tears of happiness and joy as it truly came home. Soon later, the picture was thoroughly inspected, and it was discovered that the signature was real. The most unexpected detail and the artwork itself was, for more than 30 years, the Alters had kept it hidden from inquisitive eyes behind their bedroom door. Furthermore, fresh information suggests that the seemingly unremarkable pair was the one who had taken the painting. Buck Burns, co-owner of an antique store, stated, "My personal thought, and it may be totally wrong, but when I first saw where the painting was hanging in the house, it was for their private display, not for any other person. Nobody could see it while the door was open because it was hanging behind it. However, the most damning evidence had been there in front of everyone's nose the entire time. The Cup and the Lip is a collection of short tales written by Jerome Jerry Alter from 2011. A fictional tale about a mother and her daughter robbing a museum of a 120-carat gem, distracting the guard, and taking off in a getaway car is one of the stories contained within. Upon reaching their abode, they place the diamond in a concealed panel to be only observed by them. However, Ron Roseman refuses to accept that his aunt and uncle were complicit in the heist. He regretfully said, "I just can't imagine that they would. I didn't know that aunt and uncle at all." Unfortunately for him, fresh evidence that implicates Jerry and Rita Alter was discovered in 2018 and is definitely worth considering. A picture of Jerry and Rita was discovered in 2018. It was taken in Tucson on Thanksgiving in 1985, the day before the de Kooning work was photographed. It was dated 1985. However, during a recent probe, the FBI discovered the proverbial hot button in a picture from the Alters' private collection. It turned out that Jerry was the driver of a red sports vehicle, identical to the one the security officer had reported as being driven on the day the artwork was taken. Additionally, a lot of people think that the 1985 police sketch of the couple looks a lot like Jerry and Rita Alter. In addition, No one can explain how the two instructors, who had meager wages, could afford to travel so much and possess a 20-hectare property in Cliff, New Mexico, if that's not enough proof against them. There have been no arrests yet, and the inquiry is still ongoing. Although it's impossible to know for sure, all the evidence points to the pair committing one of the biggest art crimes of the 20th century, and getting away with it. The Arizona Museum now has the de Kooning artwork Woman Ochreback, where presumably it will stay safe. An assessment of more than $160 million has been made of it. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.